podcast fans. Hey guys, I am so excited to be back with you as always. Just want to get this out of the way first and foremost. You guys know what it is. It is that disclaimer that says I don't want to get sued, right? Okay. Got to take a deep breath here because I hate saying it, but I have to. I'm not here to defame anybody, you guys. Okay. If I speak on Amway, maybe. If I speak about any of the different lines of affiliation, specifically Worldwide Dream Builders, that is the one I was a part of. That's what I know. If I speak on them, I'm not here to defame. Okay. My goal is to help people share their stories because hear me out. We can all agree that some of us have bad experiences with things. Maybe a lot of people have bad experiences, right? I'm not here to stop you. If you would like to join one of these organizations or both, please understand that if you're an adult, you can make your own decisions. I would highly recommend listening to some of the people's stories because you'll at least have a broader scope of what decision is out there for you to make with more of an education than maybe what you're being told to listen to. So, again, I'm not here to defame anybody speaking on personal opinions that are based on my personal experiences, in addition to my guest, who is also speaking on personal experiences and their opinions based on those personal experiences. You guys, I'm really excited. We have Sarah back with us today. We have a part two. If you guys are not familiar, Sarah is actually still in the business. This is why she is totally anonymous. Anybody that we speak about will be, their names will be changed. We're not going to be speaking anybody's names. Okay. Sarah, still in the business, part two. Thank you so much for being with us, Sarah.
Hello, I'm so excited to be here again. I'm so excited to just talk about all the things that have been going on, updating you guys and what to look out for.
Oh my goodness. And what's I love about this is that you have like active stories, things that are happening right now. I mean, oftentimes we'll hear something that is past tense, things that have already taken place long ago. This stuff happened to you fucking like almost like yesterday. And I think that's the unique perspective that we've never had here before. So last time we really just kind of got into how you got into Worldwide, how you got into Amway. We talked a little bit about some of the functions, what they look like today, and we touched on the fact that you had family members who were involved who then left, and we got to kind of how you started to question things. Now, before we started recording, you talked to me so much about various different like occurrences that had happened that really just kind of blew the lid off for you, that really showed who these people are.
Mhm.
So, what is it that was the biggest thing that started to make you question whether these were actually good people or not?
Honestly, what really caught my attention was when I was not even knowingly cross-lining. So when I had to move out of my apartment that I was living in currently, I had these people in my line of association at board plans that we had were super nice. And like, oh my gosh, Sarah, like I would love for you. I was thinking about you. Would you like to move in with us? And I'm like, oh my God, yes, and I told my emeralds, the Goodwills, about me possibly moving in with these people. And they said, oh my gosh, no, Sarah, like these people are newbies. They don't understand about cross lining. And at the time, I didn't really know about it either. And I was like, this is fine. Like, I think it's okay. We're in the same business. We can totally bounce ideas off of each other. It would be a great situation and it would be low rent considering over here where I live is very expensive. So that's the one thing that caught my attention. And I had to live somewhere else. I moved obviously recently, and the rent here is a little bit higher, which is totally fine. But that's one thing that caught my attention. That was like, okay, wait a minute, cross signing, what is that? So the Goodwill's wife sent me a cross lining Kate, and I listened to it, and I'm like, oh, makes sense. But that's the first thing that really caught my attention of like, okay, wait a minute, why is this rule in place? So I dug deeper, and the second thing that caught my attention was these people might not have my best interest was when I had this girl's number in the organization. Her and I go to the same, I would say, place of mass, if you will. And my upline platinum actually recommended me to go to this place. And I met her there. I'm like, oh my gosh, so and so. I'm not gonna name her name, obviously, but I'm like, oh my God, you're here, like I can't believe that we're going to the same like church. And she's like, oh my God, I'm so happy to see you here, Sarah. We obviously had each other's numbers at the time still, But what really pissed me off was I was in this group chat with this group of girls that we were all gonna hang out with. We were actually gonna have a cookie event, like making cookies, totally fine, like innocent, whatever, for the holidays. And this girl, I'm just gonna say her name is Hope, okay? Hope contacted my platinums, who were her platinums as well. She was like, "Hey, Sarah, I actually am not gonna go to the cookie event. My platinums, I don't want to say the last name because it's very complicated. They told me not to interact with you. Therefore, I'm not going to go to this event because they told me I had to have hard boundaries. And I felt so hurt. I was like, okay, wait a minute. Like, this isn't even a big deal. Like, we're just going to make cookies. That's all we're going to do. We're all going to hang out as girls, right? And mind you, I had no idea Hope was even involved in this group of girls. I just met them and I had no idea that these are her friends. So she left the group chat and her other friend left the group chat. And ever since that happened, I have not heard a peep out of that group chat. And I'm like, okay, this is getting literally insane. Where does the cross-signing rule stop? So that's the second thing that hurt my feelings. The third thing was this whole situation with this dude, okay? I'm not gonna name his name. We're just gonna say he's Australian because that's where he's from. I'm not gonna name his name. Mind you, he was the one that was pursuing me at all these functions, okay? And I'm like, "Oh my God, like, I'm getting attention. This is great. Like, he's very cute." I just got out of a very bad toxic relationship, which all my upline knew about because I told them everything because they told me to tell them literally everything. And this guy was giving me like attention. And I was like, oh my God, he's very cute. Oh my God, like, what if we date, whatever at the time? And I had no idea about the cross signing rules at that time. So I was like, oh, I was very hopeful. And my parents were still in the business. So when they saw that interaction happen, like, oh my God, like Sarah's gonna have like a guy in the business that they can build together. They're gonna have a great life. Like they were very hopeful because, like they want the best for their daughter. So every time I would have every function, he would approach me and say, "Hey, like, sir, how are you doing?" And it's the weirdest thing how he even introduced himself to me because his business partners kept encouraging him to say hi to me. They're like, "Oh, there she is." Like there was nuts and bolts that they're like encouraging him to talk. And he had a really difficult time. Finally, he introduced himself to me. And I'm like, oh my God, hey, like so and so, how are you doing? And the first thing that he says was very awkward, but that was cute at the time. He's like, why you have big earrings on? I was like, what? Who says that? Right. And I'm like, okay, we had a good conversation. And after that whole interaction happened, it seemed very like innocent. But that same night, we took a photo with my upline and my parents. And he legit took a photo of me with his phone. And I'm like, oh, I guess he likes me then. That kind of like caught my attention. Even my dad was like, hey, Sarah, like, did you see that guy took a photo of you? I'm like, I did. And that's kind of weird.
That
And my
is
dad was like,
weird.
literally, I'm just like, what is going on? So I was like, oh, I guess he just likes me, right? That same night, I walked to my car and I'm in my car. The door is opened and this Australian dude, his voice projects. So he has a very loud, deep voice. And I was like, oh my God, like there's the guy, whatever. And his business partner comes up to him, like behind my car. And he's like, hey, so and so, like, how'd that conversation go with Sarah? And the Australian was like, oh my God, we totally vibed. Like, she's my future girlfriend. You guys all meet my future girlfriend. Cause I met everybody like that night. And he was just, maybe he was making a joke. I don't know. But like for someone to say that was kind of weird. Like I just
Yeah.
I just met you. You literally had a hard time introducing yourself to me. Like you're cute, but like who says that?
What the fuck? So,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So this Australian dude. Okay. So
Yeah.
so many things that you talked about are they are weird things, but when they explained cross lining, and I think we've talked about this before, where they basically tell you like they have a vested interest. I know I think we kind of touched on that a little bit in our previous episode, but again, if you guys haven't listened, go listen to part 1. And if you guys are new and not familiar with what cross-lining is, essentially you can't talk to anybody who is not above you or under you, and you can't pass negative cross or down. You can only pass negative upline, okay? And this idea of you living with other people, like, I love that that's a thing that was even offered because obviously you're right. In an ideal world, like, that would be fine. In the regular world, you can live with whoever the fuck you want. And then, like, you're cross-lining, and then you can't even be friends with this girl who goes to your same place of worship that you're going to see anyways. Like, they try to tell us, like, "Oh, these are your cross-line cousins. You guys can be friends at functions," but obviously we can't. We can only have very surface level conversations. You never really know anybody. And then we have this Australian dude. So it sounds like at first things are pretty normal. You were interested in him. And then he proceeds to be really fucking weird. Because even your dad saw him take a photo. And then he just claims you as if you are property to claim.
Mhm. Yes, yes.
So how did you handle this situation? And did you go to your upline about it?
Honestly, in the beginning, no. Like, I talked to my parents about it first because they were my obviously, I'm very close to my family. I have no siblings. They're the person that I talk to. So I literally called them screaming as I'm driving home. It's like I was like, "Hey, mom and dad, the Australian dude said this." And the one thing that I didn't like about the one thing that my mom said was like, "Hey, Sarah, give him a chance. Maybe he was just joking." Mind you, she's always said that to about every boyfriend I've ever had. That was not good for me. So, anyways, I love her to death, but no, thank you. She just really wants me to have kids and be married. Anyways, she was like, "Oh my God, give him a chance. Maybe he was joking." And I'm like, "No, mom. Like, he legit said that to everybody. And even my sponsor, when I was in my car and the Australian dude didn't even recognize that I was right there. The minute I drove away, that's when he like was quiet. So he knew what he was saying was probably creepy. But it really caught me off guard. So when I told my parents this, they were like, "Oh my God, like, just keep it to yourself. You want to make sure you keep that relationship or whatever that is to yourself. You don't want to like spread it." So in my mind, I'm like, well, I feel like I want to share this because it's been happening. At that point, that was the first time we ever interacted, me and the Australian dude. The second time that we ever interacted was at another, I think it was a board plan where we had like a seminar, and his business partner came up to my double eagle, and they were conversing. And let's just say his name is Bob. Okay. So Bob is the Australian guy's business partner who's been in the Australian's business for a long time. So Bob was like, "Oh my God, Sarah, like, how are you?" And I was next to my sponsor that sponsored me. The double eagle walked away, and Bob was like, "How do you guys know each other?" And then they explained the story. I almost moved to Australia actually. So that's kind of what brought up that conversation. And then the Australian dude comes up to Bob and says, "Hey Bob, what's up? Hey Sarah, how are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm doing great." And then out of the blue, Bob was like, "Oh my God, like, the guy's name is from Australia." And that was the first time that I ever knew he was Australian. So, because at that point, I'm like, "Oh, this guy's cool, whatever." But when Bob said, "Oh, so and so's Australian," I'm like, "Okay," because I love Australian dudes, and I was actually gonna move to Australia to date an Australian. So I was
Living
like,
for it.
"Oh my God." I was like, "Okay, this guy's the one. He's amazing, blah, blah, blah. He's interested in me because obviously he took a photo, he claimed me or whatever." I'm like, "Okay, this is great. This is awesome." So, we interacted, whatever. And then I told my parents about it, whatever. And I was okay. He keeps approaching me, keeps doing all these things. Like it happened like multiple times. Like this was just the second incident out of like, I would say 3 or 4 times. So I brought it up to the Goodwills, my emeralds, I think we were doing like a budget session. We were trying to figure out like my money and my budget, whatever. And I said, "Hey, I really want to bring this up to you. Like, this happened the first night that we met." And then the Goodwills were like, "What's going on?" And I said, "Hey, I like this Australian guy. He's pretty cute. And he approached me, he took a photo, and he totally like pretended to like trip over my foot whenever he said hi. And he acted very awkward." And the Goodwill husband was like, he did that, Sarah?" And I'm like, "Yes." Like, he didn't believe him. Believe me, excuse me. And I'm like, "He literally did that." And then the Goodwill's wife, the first thing that she says to me was like, "Sarah, I just gotta let you know that the Australian dude, he had a business before this business to pick up chicks and help other dudes pick up girls." And I'm like, "Dude,
Wow.
okay, that is very weird because why did he have a hard time introducing himself to me?" Like, I kid you not, Danny, like, it took him, I would say, a month or and a half because I noticed him, like, trying to, like, say hi, and at Nuts and Bolts, his other business partner, let's say Fred, was like, "Hey, like, there she is, say hi," you know? So I'm like, it took him a while. So if he had a business to help guys pick up girls, why would he have a hard time, like, saying hi? Like, it's whatever,
Yeah.
you know? So that was the first time I even mentioned, like, our interaction to my
Yeah.
emeralds. And my
That's
emerald
crazy.
yeah, my emerald was like, "Oh my god, Sarah, I totally approve of this relationship. I think this would be awesome. You know, do you wanna build the business though?" Like, the Australian guy, I'm not saying his name, really wants a partner to build this business. And at the time, I was like, oh my God, yes. Like, I want a man by my side to build the business with. And they seemed very supportive of this whole thing. So the goodwill husband was like, okay, Sarah, next time you bring your guest around me. And if the Australian dude is next to me, I will ask, just talk to him, and I will ask for you, "Hey, what's up with you and Sarah?" He was totally gonna, like, do something about it. So, that was the first time I ever brought up to my upline. So and they seemed
Wow.
supportive. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Wow. So
yeah.
I guess well, and I'm assuming that we will get to this point, but the first burning question that I have is why the fuck would they tell you about this business that he had? So like there's a motive behind them saying this. And that's just such an odd thing to say because I mean, by all accounts, isn't that against their cardinal rules? Like you shouldn't know that. Like if he like that's crazy and weird. And obviously you don't know if that's true or not. So this little teeny tiny seed of doubt is being pushed by the wife in the situation. That's bizarro. But I also think it's unique and interesting that the husband was like, yeah, let's figure this out. So it begs the question, why is the wife so concerned about this and the husband's cool with it? Which of course we will get to that point just 'cause obviously we've talked about it before, but I'm really intrigued by how this is going. So now they know what's going on between you and Australian dude. And so what is the interactions like following that point where now your upline knows you guys are going to functions, you guys are probably finding each other at like board plans and stuff, like what's going on now?
So after I mentioned all of that to the Goodwills, the next function that we ever had, I noticed that the Australian and their whole team kind of pulled away. And I was like, what happened here? And then I talked to the Goodwill wife and I said, hey, like, I had a gas and everything. And I said, hey, have you talked to the Australian? And she's like, yeah, we have. And we totally asked him, is there anybody in the organization that caught your attention? And she claimed that he said no. And for whatever reason, my gut was telling me that's a lie. Like, I was feeling very like, okay, I don't know why, but maybe she's not lying. I don't know, but I'll take the benefit of the doubt, right? So I'm like, okay, interesting. So following that day, we had another function, and the Australian approached me again, and we interacted again because of Fred. So Fred is another person that's close to the Australian that we interact with. So it's always whenever his business partners are already talking to me, and the Australian would then swoop in and use that as like a break in the ice talking. And ever since we talked again for the fourth time, I would say, then we would, go outside. I think we had like a little powwow at the very end of a function. We all went outside, we were talking and encouraging everybody. And the whole time that we were outside, Bob, which is another business partner of the Australian, always came around my double eagle. He always was like, "Hey, like, what's going on?" And he would always watch me from afar, which this is the part that really creeps me out because anytime I would ever talk to my double eagle or my sponsor, who are both dudes, one, obviously the double eagle is married and my sponsor isn't. Bob and Fred would always like keep a close eye on me whenever I would interact with my sponsor. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, what's like, why are they even doing that? And the Australian would always like watch from afar, but he would never really do anything. But he would always say hi and say, "Hey, what's going on?" He'd give me a hug, and even point in my direction at other functions. Like he ever had guests with him, they would like say hi. And then I would walk over to Hope because me and Hope are very close, right? And they would like all point at me and say, "Oh, like, is that girl, whatever?" And I'm like, what the frick is going on? So that's why
Yep.
I was very confused. So every time that we would say hi, I'm like, oh, like maybe he just doesn't want to tell the Goodwills that he might have a crush on me too, because maybe there's a certain rule. Because I didn't know anything about the rules yet. So I'm
Yeah.
like, okay. So that's kind of like how we interacted at the end and after we talked and everything was ironed out with the Goodwills. We just kept talking, but I guess he just lied to them. I don't know. It was weird.
Wow. Part of me thinks, I mean, I think they're lying to you. I don't think there was a conversation that was had that was positive. Um, and I say that just because of I know that's how the culture is in worldwide. I mean, the way that they treat people, and we had this conversation before, probably I think maybe when we weren't recording, I can't recall, but I've had this conversation with many people. Worldwide is very good about putting together who they want together. Like I have seen so many people who, while we were in the business, they were just upline were very, very particular about who they wanted with who. And it's because, in my opinion, they feel like if they get the right two people together, they're not going to leave the business. And it's really frustrating because you, as an adult, you're grown as fuck. You're a grown woman, and you can't even have your own conversation with this guy who is also a grown adult. You guys have to go to mommy and daddy upline and say, "Hey, guys, I might have a crush on this guy," as if you have to go ask for permission to date somebody, which is so weird. But the interactions seem to be, in my opinion, it sounds like the conversation that was had. It sounds like the upline had a conversation with the upline. Like the Emeralds had a conversation with whoever equivalent upline he would have. And that's usually how it goes is the upline will talk to each other about their downline and then decide what they're going to do. Does that sound like maybe what could have happened just based on his interactions with you following that?
Yeah, honestly, yes, actually, that's I feel like that's what was going on because after that whole interaction and I told the Goodwills about it, there was this incentive party that was at the end of summertime. It was in September. I didn't even qualify, I don't think, because I fell off that core run. And I was like, okay, I kind of can't keep up with this. We were dropping the message like 3 times a day. I was like running with it. And I'm like, okay, I can't do this, right? There was a board plan that we had and the Goodwill husband was there. And this was the night before the incentive. And the incentive was near where I live. So, and the Australian lives way far away. And obviously he was coming. Um, the husband was like, "Hey, like Sarah, like, did you qualify for the incentive?" And I said, "I don't know if I did." And I kid you not, Danny, he literally invited me to this incentive in front of my sponsor. And my sponsor didn't go. He was like, "I don't know if I qualify. I'm not going to go." And I'm like, "Okay, but I want to go. Like, that'd be great. And then he was like, "Let me talk to my wife. Like, I'm sure you can come. Like he made it seem like he had to pull strings, but I have a feeling that they were doing something. And when that happened that night, I was like, something's not right. Like they're doing something right now. So I go to the incentive, and obviously the Australians there. I was talking to literally everybody under the sun, like getting to meet all of these eagles, double eagles. in the Goodwill's organization. I had a great time. And that whole time, Danny, like the Australian was watching me. He was observing who I was talking to. Every person that I would talk to, he would talk to afterwards, like right after. I think I had a very good conversation with one of the legs that the Goodwills had in their organization that, I was like connecting with, and we were really having a great conversation. And the Australian was like watching me like a hawk with this person. And I'm like, what the frick? Like, what is happening? Like, why do you have to keep observing me, watching me, whatever? After that conversation, I walked away, talked to the wife, and then they had a really deep conversation. The Australian approached that person that I just talked to, and me and the Australian would interact subtly. Like I would walk over and talk to the people around them. And then I think he made a comment and I was like, oh my God, like, I would just like be giddy and like laugh, whatever. I was just being a girl, obviously. But the Australian would follow the Goodwill husband everywhere he go. Like it's like he was a lost puppy without the emerald. So I have a feeling before this even occurred, this incentive, I think he was like not knowing what to do with himself because I was there. And I probably shouldn't have even been there. And they were like telling me to come for whatever reason. Um, and then I think it was the Emerald's Diamond. They're the fitness people. And this was the first time they ever really talked to me and interacted with me. And I'm like, why are they all of a sudden being nice to me? So maybe you're right. They did talk to their upline and they were discussing. And at the very end of the night for the incentive, finally, me and the Australian got to talk. And this is one thing that really brought to my attention. Okay, he does like me, is because I was the one that approached him. I wanted to be nice, like, oh, I'm saying bye to everybody. I want to say bye to him too. I gave him a hug. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, bye. Like, and he said, hi, bye. I'm so sorry, Sarah, that I didn't say hi to you. We had a lot of conversations. I said, no worries. And he was leaning over in my face the whole time. And I think it was Kevin, I've been saying this person's name, was like, hey, like so and so, the Australian, we have to go. And the Australian told him, hey, bro, I'm doing something important. Like, and that was talking to me. And I was like, whoa, like,
Well, damn.
what's happening? And then Kevin starts to like mess with him and walk in between us. And I'm like, okay, okay. This
That's
guy,
weird.
like, yeah, this guy likes me. Okay. It's freaking obvious. Okay. So then I'm like, okay, like, nice to see you. You have to go. And he's okay, like, I'll see you at the next incentive, right? Sarah, I'm like, oh, totally. And we also buy, and then someone else said goodbye to me, like another leg of theirs, like, oh my gosh, Sarah, like, you're gonna go crown. Like, they're all very close. I'm like, okay. That was the first time I felt like it was a family and I didn't want to leave. And going into FED after that incentive, I was fired up, Danny. I printed out my course sheet. I laminated it. I'm like, I have to go to this next incentive because I love these people. And that's when it all went downhill. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. And the signals are so mixed here.
Yes.
And it sounds like it's not anything to do with him. It sounds like that's what the puppeteers are having him do and be so confused because he knows that he feels this type of way and he knows that you feel some type of way. I'm sure he probably knew that as well. But yet he's like, gotta appease my upline. Like, I can't do too much. But then also there's like this invasion of space. And then the very juvenile sounding downline or buddy or whoever the fuck that was, that's weird. This whole interaction is just bizarre. Like that, I don't even know. The song like that's bizarre. Like that's what comes to mind right now. Okay, it's weird. So okay, we have this incentive. We go to FED. We are fired up. Shit takes a turn.
Mm.
What the hell is happening here?
Honestly, after FED is when I started to connect the dots, is because I had a council session with my Emerald. Um, and what he brought up to me in our council session was about going eagle. That was the whole point of me having this council session. I'm like, okay, What do I need to do? Like, what does it really take? Because I was fired up. I wanted to be Eagle for the next function. I want to be on that floor. I want to be close to the diamonds and all people, the huddles, everything. I'm like, I'm going to be on that floor. And when I want something, I will go after it. So my upline and I were talking and conversing, and I said, hey, like, what does it really take? So he drew out all the circles, the whole thing. And then he's like, but here's the thing, Sarah, there's also money, not just from Amway, but from Worldwide Group. And that's what piqued my interest. So I was like, wait a minute. Okay, wait a minute. This is the first time I've ever heard this from you. What does that mean? Then he drew it out for me. He is like, okay, when you go platinum, that is when you start to make real money. When you go platinum, you don't want to be a platinum. You want to be, then I think it goes, oh my gosh, I forgot the gems now. It goes platinum and then like ruby, double eagle ruby, and then emerald, and then diamond, obviously. So that's what he explained to me. And I said, okay, so that means you get paid to speak on stage, right? And he's like, yeah, pretty much. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. In my mind, I'm like, oh, okay, like that's fine, you know. But what really got me fired up and upset was when my emeralds passed the baton over to my double eagles. So they weren't double eagles yet. They were eagles and they went double eagle, but I felt kind of abandoned from my emeralds because they were doing meet and greets. I was getting the calendar filled up. I was like getting a ton of meet and greets and dropping like a crap ton. And they encourage you to fill up the calendar, right? That is what they told me. But when I started to actually do the work, they were like, oh, Sarah, I really don't think, you know, we need to do this anymore. We want to do meet and greets for someone else who's having more meet and greets than you. And we're going to start tap running into them. So we're passing off the baton for the meet and greets to the double eagles. And at that point, I'm like, oh my God, did I do something wrong? Like, what did I do? Like, I'm doing what I need to do. So that kind of confused me and I felt kind of hurt. But they were like, you know, smoothing over the blow. And like, Sarah, like, if you ever want to talk to us, don't feel, you know, you can always reach out to us. Don't ever feel obligated to not talk to us. I'm like, okay, I'll talk to you. And then that's when shit hit the fan because my double eagles, I feel like, did not know what the heck was going on. They were doing meet and greets for me, but the double eagle husband, the pioneers, he was great at doing meet and greets. He was doing the cash flow quadrants. He seemed very knowledgeable. I'm like, oh, this is great. You know, this is a good asset for my business to grow. But the way that he started to come across to my guests, as well as my meet and greet, like people that I brought to him, he seemed very cocky. He seemed very degrading to myself, as well as my guests that I brought. And that's when I started to like think about it. I'm like, why is he like treating me differently? He seemed way more controlling at this point because when I had meet and greets, he was like, Sarah, like, what are you saying? You know, you have to do it this way. And then I went to the board plan at the time that we had achievers, and it was with the platinums. My platinums did a board plan while my emeralds were at achievers. And this is when everything started to fall apart. I went with my guest. We carpooled together. Okay. And we had a great time. It was a great opportunity to get to know my guests, to get to know what they wanted to do. You know, I think it was a very bonding experience. So it didn't seem weird. So I went to this board plan. Platinum started to act very strange. Like he didn't seem as happy. The way that he explained the plan was very greedy and very like, um, what is it called? Not greedy, desperate. He seemed very desperate and very like, you need to get into this business or else you're stupid. But he didn't say that. He said that with his eyes, and what he was like, his grin just said it all. And he was honing in on my guest. Like my guest was sitting next to me, who was a male and who was my friend now. He was eyeing him the whole time. And I was like, why is he looking at my guest so intently? And I felt bad because I'm like, okay. So after that happened, he obviously failed the process. He's like, I don't think this is gonna work out. I'm sorry, Sarah. And then the double eagle was like, okay, Sarah, you know what? Lose his number. It's not, he's obviously not wanting to be in the business. He only wanted to be in the business for you. He's like, he just wanted to date you. And I'm like, excuse me? No, like he's a great person. I think he's a great guy. And then this is where the Hulk shit happened. I said, you know what? I don't like him. I like someone else in the business. And that's when he's like, who is it? And I'm like, I don't know if I want to say this. Like, I feel like this is wrong. And I'm like, oh, is it the Australian dude? Obviously, he said the name. Is it him? And I said, how did you know that? Like, I didn't tell you these things. The only person, the people that I've said were the Emeralds, the Goodwills. And I'm like, no one else saw me interact with this Australian dude. And that's when he went off on me on the phone. He was like, Sarah, you were cross-lining with him. You were totally pursuing him. You were flirting with him, weren't you? Like the platinum saw you flirting with this dude. And I'm like, whoa, like, what are you saying right now? Like, no, no, no. Started to defend myself. I'm like, excuse me. No, like this Australian dude said hi to me first. He approached me first. He took a photo of me, which I didn't give consent to. And mind you, he also stalked me in and out, which I didn't like say yet. He stalked me to in and out. Okay. And did I say that? I probably should say that. So I went to in and out by myself after a function. It looked like his car. And I was like getting out of my heels, taking off my accessories. And this car just parked, was watching me, and I'm like, is this person gonna get food? Nope, didn't go through the drive-through, didn't get out to go to the bathroom, just sitting there pretty. And I'm like, it looks like that guy's car. But I'm like, I don't know. I went inside, went to the bathroom, came back out, they were still there. And I'm like, who the frick is this? And I'm like, okay, this is kind of weird. I was by myself. Anyways, that's just speculation. I don't know if it was him, but it looked like his car. Um, and I told that to my double eagle, and he was like, okay, Sarah, like, I really need to talk to Upline about this because I've never had anybody in my business like possibly cross line to another guy, and it seemed like you're pursuing him. And I said, no, like I wasn't. And at the time, I was questioning the tool system. That's why he even called me. He called me to address the tools. And I told him, I said, you know what? I don't know about this whole business thing. Do you make money off of me? Do you make money from the tools? Like, what the hell is this? Because if I'm going to be in a business, invest my time, my efforts, my money, and my hard earned money that I make in my job, which is hard to come around, why would I spend on tools when I'm not
Right.
getting any value? Yeah. Like
Yeah.
it's people talking to me. It's people like, just give me advice, whatever.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what led to him saying, oh, it's a profit. Like, oh, but you don't know that, Sarah, do you? Because you don't have a business degree. He has a business. He was making me
Wait,
feel
what?
dumb at that point. So, anyways, I
What?
could go on.
Oh my God. Wow. Okay. So many fucking things here. First of all, this Australian dude it sounds actually pretty fucking weird.
Mm,
Um, so in retrospect, I think you dodged a bullet.
yep.
Second of all, this misogynistic viewpoint that because you are a woman, you are the one who approached him, despite the fact that you are not the one who approached him. You were the one who was I think it sounds even just fair to say like you were just reacting. Like oh maybe I mean walking up and talking to somebody is not like approaching them in the same regard that this guy was. And he even followed you to in and out. That's fucking weird. And and it's frustrating because unfortunately this is not new. Like this is not a new concept for me and I hate to say it, but if you guys have not listened, go listen to Brie, her episode. I think it came out last year. She's amazing. She is from the Midwest and she had talked about how she went eagle, almost double eagle, and how some guy was doing similar things where he was like sexually harassing her and they blamed her.
Mm,
So fucking stupid. So it's the culture, it's worldwide culture. But when it comes to your situation here, it's really upsetting because it's the wife who seems to be the one like perpetuating this
mm,
nonsense and this misogyny onto you. And I think we kind of had a conversation about this beforehand, But if you guys haven't been in a setting like this, you guys have to understand that there's a lot of insecurity in women because of the patriarchal system. You're talking about men who have their thumb on women in every aspect. And so you have to imagine that women, especially the wives of these higher pin levels, they're very insecure. And so it sounds like she was almost projecting her own insecurities onto you, which kind of leads me back to her comment about his job beforehand. So it's just so fucking weird. So, but not only that, we're talking about the slip of the tongue with what happens with the tools money. And all of a sudden you're having these questions. How did they respond to you? I mean, I know, like, how did they respond to you starting to ask these specific questions?
Honestly, what really caught me off guard with what they were asking and telling me was they made me feel kind of dumb for not knowing that you can make money from the tools. So, what my double eagle husband was saying was, you know what, Sarah, like this is how business works. Why didn't you just ask? And I'm like, I have, but you don't give me a direct answer. They always skirt around the answer and they give you the BOV again. They draw the circles and the whole thing again. They draw the percentages again, but they don't address the tools ever. So whenever they would answer my question about how much money do you make and where are you getting this money from? They would just always address it with Amway. Amway is where you get your money from. So when I found out on my own that you make money from the tools from my emerald who mentioned it, I was like, okay, that's when I was first introduced to the whole tools. So when I brought it up, he made me feel like, okay, you could have just asked. Why didn't you ask us? That's how business works. Do you not know what business is, Sarah? And then I'm like, started to challenge him. I'm like, no, I didn't know because you kept dodging my question. And I had to research it for myself because you were not answering me. So then he went on to say, okay, listen to me, Sarah. Like, I want you to listen. And at this point, Danny, he kept cutting me off. I was trying to talk. I felt controlled and downplayed. And it reminded me of my domestic relationship that I just got out of. Like, my brain started to shut off and get very foggy and frustrated because I wasn't speaking my piece. He kept talking over me and cutting me off. And I think at some point in the phone call, he was like, Sarah, like, look at me. And I'm like, we're on the phone, dude. Like, I'm not with you in person. But I think he used that verbiage to kind of like make me submit to what he was telling me. And he kind of was explaining about, oh, yeah, at certain pin levels, you get a certain percentage. You get to go higher up. You get to, have a profit share. Do you know what a profit share is, Sarah? And I'm like, kind of, but it's because I researched it. So again, they made me feel stupid for not knowing the tools money, which is bullcrap because they don't tell you. They literally tell you in functions on stage, they don't get paid to talk. We're here for you guys. Even like in board plans, we don't get paid to be here, but yes, you do. Because it made more sense to me why they kept pushing to buy tickets to go to functions, to be on Dreamstream, to be on Kate, communicate with your coach, because that is where their majority of the money is coming from. And it all clicked. And I started to call them out on the phone. And I also mentioned to the double eagle husband, and yeah, you know what? I'm also getting culty vibes from our organization. Is that true? And that set him off. He was like, you know what, Sarah? Like, you know what? You could be right. And he was sprinkling truth in there. And I'm like, because it is. And he's like, but you know what? It's not. And I'm surprised that you would even say that because we're speaking positivity into people. We're speaking goodness into you. Of course, you would think it's a cult because everywhere outside of this is a cult because they brainwash you to think that a job is good, but really it's not good. And I'm like, oh my God, this is making my brain spin. And the nail in the coffin was when he said, you know what, Sarah, like everything you're saying just sounds very demonic. And I'm like, excuse me.
Sorry.
Oh
The use of the word demonic here is crazy.
my
Listen,
God.
when I think of demonic, I think of fucking the Ouija boards. Okay. That's fucking demonic. Okay. We don't fuck with those around here, just so you
No,
know. Okay.
no,
If you listen to
no,
my podcast, don't have one of those nearby. Don't
no.
fuck with me. Okay. We don't fuck with the demons. Okay. I'm just kidding. Kind of. But like, on what planet is asking fucking questions, quote, demonic? I'm sorry. What says cult more than that? Truthfully. Oh
Oh
God,
my
I'm sorry. Like I can't. It's just so funny.
It was awful. When he said that, I'm like, are you kidding me? For you to even say that just proves that it's a cult because you're denying and you're getting defensive, you're getting angry, you're cutting me off, you're making me feel little, belittle because I'm getting to the truth. Whenever my domestic violent ex-boyfriend, I caught him cheating every single time, he would belittle me, make me feel stupid, and cut me off and not let me speak. Those were the same things that the double eagle husband was doing. So that triggered me. That triggered me to respond and say, you know what? The only reason why I'm in this business is not because of you, it's because of that Australian and because of and because of the emeralds, because I was really close to the Goodwills, like even now, you know. And that is what triggered him to be like, wow, Sarah, I cannot believe you would say that to me. I put in so much time into you. I put in so much effort. You know, you haven't even put in ditto, and I'm still talking to you. And I'm like, because I'm broke as heck, because I'm getting out of debt from school. Thank you very much. Um, and that's what made me like freak out because the next thing that he said, Danny, triggered my past wounds from my narcissistic relationship with my ex-boyfriend. He was like, Sarah, I'm going to contact this Australian. I'm going to talk to him and address if you've been talking to him, if you've been pursuing him. I'm like, I got to address it. And that freaked me out because I'm like, oh my God, like he's going to talk crap about me. Because he, at the time, my parents left the business. He was talking shit on my parents. And who's to say he could not do the same thing to me, to this Australian dude? Because they know everything about my past because I was quote unquote honest with them because they encouraged me to be honest with them, right? To gain trust. They could turn around and literally like obliviate my character to this Australian guy. And I'm like, oh my God, I need to contact this. So I call my
Wow.
landlord after I get off the phone with the double eagles. And I'm like, oh my God, this is happening. What do I do? I don't know what to do right now. I'm freaking out. And she's like, okay, Sarah, you need to contact the Australian. You need to do damage control. You need to just clear the air. And so I found, like, thankfully, I found his number on WhatsApp and I searched his name. And I'm like, hey, I really need to talk to you. I talked to my double eagle. I opened up to him about some things. He said he's going to contact you. I'm very concerned. Can we like, if you're able to, can we talk on the phone? And within like, I would say a matter of like 5 to 10 minutes, he calls me on WhatsApp and he's like, hey, Sarah, like, what's going on? I kid you not, Danny, that whole conversation was scripted. It didn't sound very genuine. He sounded very coached because I later found out that he screenshotted that like text that I sent him to the Goodwills who were his sponsor. And I guarantee you they coached him because the way he talked was not genuine. I just felt like the heebie-jeebies. He was like, Sarah, I just want to let you know that I respect your upline. I respect you as a person. It takes you a lot of courage to contact me. And
A script already. Sorry.
oh
Sorry.
my God, it's so bad. It was scripted. And then I didn't have any word in. And he was like, you know what? I just want to say I respect you. You're awesome, but what's going on? Then I said, okay, like so and so. I just wanted to let you know I just got off the phone with my double eagle, the pioneers. And I told them like we've interacted and I had a guy that was going through the process that might have been had a crush on me, but he fell out. But I had to tell him that I didn't like him because I don't like short guys. I like tall guys. And to appease my upline, I told him I like somebody else. And he said, you. And I said, "Well, yeah, he's a great leader. He's a great guy. Like we've interacted. He seems interested, I guess, you know." And I'm like, "But maybe I read the room wrong. I don't know." And the next thing he says was like, "Hey, like Sarah, I really like who you are. You're an amazing person." Like he kept like saying those things, right? And I said, "Okay, get to the chase." He was like, "I commend you for your courage and you're awesome. And the season of life that I'm in right now, I don't want to date. I think it takes so much of my time, you know." And that's exactly what the emeralds told me that he said that previous time. The exact same verbiage, script, everything that they told me. And he said, and I was like, "Okay." And he's like, "I don't have those feelings, but I like who you are." And I have to tell you, Sarah, this is what also caught me off guard, Danny. It's really gross. He was saying the goodwills have a hand in my life. They're very interwoven in my life. I'm like, "What does that mean?" And I'm like, "There's something going on here." And then I said, "You know what? Thank you." I told him, I said, "You know what? I just admire you as a person. You're a great leader. I read the room wrong. I'm so sorry. Like, I just really admire you and your leadership, and you're a great person." And then he was like, "You know what? We can be mature about this. Like, I would really still like to see I would still like to see you at the functions. I hope you have an amazing day. I have a meeting I have to get to. I'm so sorry I have to cut this short." I'm like, "No worries. Like, it's totally fine. You do your thing. I respect you. You're awesome." And he's like, "We'll talk later." I said, "Okay, it's fine." Hang up. And I'm like, "Okay, what just happened?"
Holy shit. Okay, I just want to say if you guys can't see me right now, my facial expression this entire time has just been like, what the fuck? Because that was 1000 fucking percent scripted. Those are worldwide words, okay? If anybody starts fucking talking to you like that, they have been and worldwide. Hey, I really respect you as a human. Um, you're such a good leader. You're so courageous for making the fuck off, my guy. You're told to say this. Like that's the that's the shitty thing about it. It's like I think dude's a weirdo anyway. Okay, I'm legit. I think Australian dude, like I said, you dodged a bullet.
Yes.
Weird. However, I do have to say, like, obviously, he's still so indoctrinated and still so brainwashed that he had to do it. I mean, he truly believes that this is the greatest opportunity in the world. And his upline somehow made a threat to him to some capacity. And of course, when I say threat, if you guys are not familiar with this organization, they do things very indirect at first, unless they're like super tight. Then they'll be just as fucking direct as they want to be. But a lot of the times it's indirect. And that's like, well, if you do you don't you want to go platinum? Like you're not going to get there by messing around with these girls. Like what season of life are you in right now? Because if you're on your platinum run, come on, like you got to focus, and in a way that is them threatening you and being like, we're not going to pay attention to you anymore because your focus is going to be on this girl. You're not going to be focused on us. You're not going to be giving us money anymore. Shut the fuck up and focus. And it's so frustrating because on one hand he's a fucking weirdo. But on the other hand, it's like, God damn, like, dude, you could have been man enough to be like, no, I actually do have these feelings for you. You're not misreading the room because he just gaslit you. In every other setting, he has literally spelled out without actually speaking, I am attracted to you. And obviously, so I didn't realize. So you guys share these emeralds. So he is downline from the emeralds. So okay, so it sounds like the emeralds then are the ones. It's the wife. It's the wife of these fucking emeralds. So oh my god, wow. And then I just want to speak too as well to the fucking piece of shit double eagle dude who fucking spoke to you as if he's somehow superior to you. Hate to break it to you, fucking guy. You don't know anything. And of course, we know that now because if you guys are not familiar, you guys just have to understand you do not know about the tools money until you are a platinum. Okay. That's when you learn about it. If you guys are not familiar with, formerly known as Heroes to Villains, they are now called X.IBO. They were in for 13 years, personally sponsored by Two Diamonds. Okay. They did not know about the tools money. Besties with diamonds, no idea. So this double eagle does not know. Okay. That doesn't mean what he said was acceptable, but I think that could be why he was so offended by what you said. This whole interaction had to have been a whole mind fuck for you. Like, how are you feeling after this phone call? Like, after you had some time to process, how how did you take that? Like, how did you move on mentally from what just happened?
Honestly, Danny, like after I got off the phone with my double eagle, I started to cry in my car. Like I just felt so mind fucked. It reminded me of how my DV relationship treated me. And I felt so low, so upset. I called my landlord and I told her everything. And she was like, "Oh my God, Sarah, like, I am so sorry that you went through that. He is a piece of shit." And you have no right to feel that. He was the one that caused this. He's the one that made you feel this way. He was the one that made you panic. He was the one that made you feel less than and have to prove yourself to the Australian because he threatened to contact him for God knows what he was going to say. And even then, he doesn't even have his number. So he did an empty threat.
They technically cross-lined your double eagle and this dude. So isn't that cross-lining? That's passing negative cross-line. Like, it doesn't matter where in the line of sponsorship they fall, right? That's not their fucking person to contact. You
Mm,
guys have to understand this goes against the cross-lining rules. You cannot do that.
mm.
But he apparently can, right? Because he's a big old double eagle. Okay, you guys, and I say this all the time, it doesn't matter what pin level you are in the business, whether you fall under worldwide's little recognitions that are eagle, double eagle, right? Those are genuinely fucking meaningless positions. Or if you fall under the gemstones, platinum, ruby, emerald, diamond. If you're gonna walk right next to me, a fucking teeny tiny little podcast person who's a genuine nobody, we're going to walk side by side. And the only thing they're going to recognize is maybe you have some Gucci shoes on and I don't. They don't fucking know who you are. They don't know who I am. Okay. We are virtually the same. You might just have a quote better job, but they don't know that. You're not going to walk into Walmart and be fucking praised for being an Amway diamond. No one gives a shit. And I just understand I have a lot of empathy because I know that there are people who make it to eagle and double eagle and they just don't know what they don't fucking know. But at the end of the day, he has this inflated ego thinking that he can just do whatever he wants. And obviously that's not true. And he did trigger you in a way that was unacceptable. Never acceptable, but it's like they don't understand that you're coming to them with your fucking trauma and they don't fucking care. Like, anybody who genuinely cares is not going to make you feel fight or flight. How long ago was this when this happened with the Australian guy conversation with the double eagle to when you contacted me?
Honestly, when I found out about the tool system, I contacted you, I think like a day later. A
Love it.
day.
Thank you.
Yes, I literally was looking online about like what the heck is happening because that's when I fully woke up. Because this same day was when I found out about the tools and I contacted my upline via Kate and I said, "We're stealing money from people. Like I have in my Kate, I saved it. Like, aren't we stealing?" And that's what triggered my double eagle to contact me and call me immediately and say, "You're hot and cold, Sarah. Like, what's going on?" And then that whole blow up happened. So from that day to like a day or two later, I read and I found your podcast and I'm like, oh my God, that's what one triggered me to email you and say, I have to just tell this because I feel betrayed and hurt and upset and lied to and deceived because they totally lied to me about everything. And you're right, Danny. I don't even think that the double eagles know about the tool money. Maybe he might. No, thank you. I do not deserve to be treated that way. And his wife wasn't helping any. That's one thing that really caught me. My friend, who I also called that same day crying, he was like, what the hell are the wives doing? Are they just letting their husbands talk crap to these other girls? Like, aren't they supposed to support you? And I'm like, yeah, but they're not. They're defending their husbands. And half the time, the husbands are talking over their wives and they're like just a little pretty party next to them. It's like they're not really doing much. They're just helping their husbands. So this whole interaction really made me recognize that this whole organization is a freaking boys club because the women are just there to sit pretty and encourage and help couples. But if a woman has anything to say, sometimes the husband will let the woman say her piece. Like my emerald, he lets his wife speak and she has a lot to say. She's awesome, but other than that, that's just like she talks. But the majority of the time, they literally talk over their wives, and their wives have nothing to do with anything. They just kind of like are their little pets, if that makes any sense, which is unfortunate
Yeah.
because we have a voice too. We women have went through crap in the past. We've had to fight for our rights in like the career. Men typically get paid more than women back then. And now I just feel like in Amway and worldwide, they go backwards. They literally are olden times and women have no voice and they're told to wear certain things, not say certain things. They can't interact with other people unless you are with your husband. And it just
Yep.
makes me infuriated because it's like you're judging me for my personality. Like later on, when that whole situation happened, the wife blamed me and said I was flirting with Australia. I'm like, excuse me, like that is not my personality. I do not chase. I appreciate when a man pursues me because you know what? Like it makes us feel good. Like, thank you for appreciating me as a woman. That's how we should be treated. Some other women like pursue, that's totally fine. Like, you do you. But me as a person, I love to be pursued because it makes me feel great. So when she claimed that I was flirting, I'm like, heck no, I wasn't. That's not my personality. Thank you very much. So yeah, it just absolutely pissed me off that they were blaming me because I wasn't, clearly.
Yeah, no, oh my god, no. Like that's insane. I mean, so this happened, you guys, weeks ago. Weeks ago, because I first got my email from you at the very beginning of the month. And I'm so grateful that you did reach out. Like, it has been so fun getting to know you. But this story is like ongoing, you guys. Like, this is a saga that it sounds like we're probably going to have a part three because holy shit, we have been going for over an hour. And it's insane because you still have so much that you wanted to touch on. So, obviously, it sounds like part three is going to need to happen. But you guys, this is actively happening right now. This is not something that happened last year, 2 years ago. You guys, this is now. If you take anything away from Sarah's story, is that this organization is not going to change because if you have not heard already, the anti MLM kid, she is incredible. Her parents have been in for half a century, and she was talking about these exact same things happening. And every story that we have heard from the first guest I ever had, Jess, to Hope and Fisher, to so many other people. I wish I could name everybody. There's been so many. But every single person has described this same culture. When when are people going to start to get it? And obviously we know when you're brainwashed, it's so hard to get through to people because we've all been there, obviously. But I just want people to understand the gravity. There's one more thing I would love for you to touch on, and that is the most recent email that you sent me, which was I loved reading it because I love that this is a story that you get to tell. This is your place to speak on these negative things. But also speaking to you is like so fun anyway. Um, But also, we had a conversation about this before it even happened. So please tell us what the most recent thing is that had happened.
So basically, Danny, you totally called it. They use other people to make you jealous. So, having said that, I was not budging on Dreamstream. They were posting about the Australian after this whole blow up happened. I got ignored. The only people I was hearing Kate's from was the Emeralds. My platinums, nowhere to be found. My double eagles, nowhere to be found. My sponsor, nowhere to be found. And I was texting them and I'm like, hey guys, like I have a guest coming on this like day, not hearing anything, nothing. And the only person I was hearing was from the Goodwills, the Emeralds. They were sending me Kates. And all of the Kates, Danny, were literally about the Australian because I opened up to my double eagle saying, "Oh, the only reason why I'm in this business is because of the Goodwills and the Australian because I admire them as leaders." So I was flooded with the incentive that he recently went to. All photos, mind you, a picture of them working out together in a tight shirt and and I'm like, they know what they're doing, okay? Like, oh my God, the Australians doing this, they're doing that. Because I mentioned that I liked him as a leader. He was just showcasing that like no end. And then all these kids about how he's great. He's like kissing up to the emerald. I'm like, dude, I'm getting flooded with this boy. Okay. He's not a man, he's a boy. Okay. And I wasn't budging. I still wasn't Kating back. And I finally got this Kate that absolutely infuriated me was the Australian signed a girl who was about 19, I would say, who is naive, young, like she has her own jewelry store on Instagram that the Australian was showcasing because my emerald likes to send Kates about people that get signed. But how convenient that it was a woman, okay? Which maybe I'm reading into it, whatever. But still, it's like they're trying to promote insecurity. And when I saw that, I was like, this girl in this cake was like giddy. I'm like, oh my God, murmur. I'm like, okay, okay. That is the end of that. I don't want anything to do with this man. I'd rather eat spiders than talk to this person because that's exactly what my ex did. Every time I would want to leave my ex, who would abuse me to no end emotionally, I wanted to leave. And the one thing that kept me in that relationship, Danny, was he was talking to other girls. And that's what kept me around. And I told that to my upline in confidence. So they're using that to me, their advantage. They're pulling on my strings, my trauma. I told them, it makes me pissed. I can't speak now.
Wow.
So cute.
Wow. No, I don't think you're reading too much into it. I think you are receiving it the way that they intend for you to receive it. And that's fucked up. But it honestly checks out for exactly how the culture is. I just want to say too, I think we talked about this. This dude is almost 30. This poor young girl is 19. Can't even buy fucking beer yet. And here she is getting signed into a cult that she's supposed to figure out the rest of her life right now. And it listen, I know that she is by law an adult, okay? I understand the age of consent. Okay, I want to preface this. Does that mean that grooming can't still happen? It can happen. Grooming is not just a sexual thing. It is not just for the those types of intentions. You can have, I mean, the process we've talked about it is a grooming process in itself, right? But when it comes to the way that they are reacting to this girl, it is a really creepy type of grooming vibe that I'm getting because the dude's almost 30 and she is like naive, 19 years old. They could very well, obviously, we don't know, but they could very well facilitate a relationship between the two of them, which, in my humble opinion, is stupid. Not just because of the age difference, but because of the power dynamic that exists here. But all of that to say that this organization, you guys, really does hate women because they're not going to do this to dudes. They're not going to sit there and try to make the men jealous because the men own the system. The women are the ones who are the little pawns that they can use against each other because women have a catty nature and they understand that. That is what the patriarchy does. That is how they maintain control because they fuck with women. They fuck with people of color. They fuck with the LGBTQ plus community. They're fucking with or the people that they view as vulnerable, right? It is so crazy to me, but I don't think that you're crazy for thinking that. That's quite literally what I personally believe that they're doing. And that happened like how long ago? Like how many days ago was that? That's days, right?
Literally just like yesterday, this
Oh
happened.
my God. yesterday. As
Yeah.
of this recording, this happened yesterday. I don't know when this is going to come out, but just know that yesterday to today is when this took place. This is actively happening right now at the very end of 2024. You can't convince me that this is not a shitty, culty organization. Like, I just can't be convinced. They're horrible people. And I'm so glad that obviously, even though you are still like technically in, you are very out. And just so that way we can have a little bit of a palate cleanser. What are some positive things that you have been able to do with your life now that you are mentally checked out of the cult?
Honestly, I am finally embracing myself and learning what Sarah really wants for herself. Like had a following on Instagram, which they told me to delete. Now I'm getting back on there. I was pursuing YouTube and social media, which is a passion of mine because I love video creation. I love making videos. I like making people laugh. I like to just entertain because it makes me feel good and making other people feel great. I've looked at my job differently now, where as in the beginning, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I want to get out, I want to smash the alarm clock, right? That's what I teach. But now I just have a more appreciation for it because I'm influencing the youth to grow and be better instead of con people into a cult. So in my mind, I actually appreciate what I have now. Whereas before, when I was in mentally, I just looked at things in a different lens. Like, I don't appreciate what I have. I want to get out of this job. I have nothing else. Like, this is all it. But now I have a healthy mindset. I now have balance. Whereas when I was mentally in, you don't have balance. It's literally your whole life. So when you finally get out mentally, you have your life back. You have your mental state back. You have, free time now. And I finally feel way more relaxed and I can pursue what I truly love, which is video creation and influencing people to be the best version of themselves, truly, not brainwashing them with negative positivity. So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I love that. I really do. And I think that you have a lot of value that you do get to share with the world the way that you want to. It doesn't have to look like what a worldwide stage is. You can say what you want to what capacity you choose, and you get to choose the influence that you have. And I love that for you. I really do. I think that there is so much more freedom in leaving than the freedom that they will ever have. They don't have freedom. Let's be real. If you guys have ever seen this type of an organization or you've been involved, you know that there is no rest for these people because they're constantly having to rebuild and rebuild and rebuild. They can never stop. Whereas you can stop when you leave your job. You get paid. You actually get paid to do your job. But not only that, you have a weekend. Whatever days or whatever that looks like for you, you get to have that. That's your time to check the fuck out, be yourself, and live your actual life. Like they always try to tell us we have so much time at a job and we can't live a life, but we can though. And I can't remember who said this to me. So if this was you, please understand, I know it was you. This is not an original thought. Somebody said this to me. I just can't remember who. So I'm so sorry. But somebody was telling me recently about the fact that you can do so much with a part-time life, right? People can get married, people can go on vacation, people can have children, so much actually happens outside of our jobs. Yes, we need a job to survive and have money. Do all of the jobs that we have, are they great? No. But we also get to decide. And sometimes the empowerment is deciding to stay at your job. Sometimes the empowerment is knowing, okay, if I just stick it out a little bit longer, I can raise the ranks and get to where I actually want to be. And it's okay to love your job. I will say this example any time I get an opportunity to. My dad is on his second job in 30 years, you guys. My dad stayed at one job for over a quarter of a century. Okay. And worldwide dogged on that. They're like, oh, that's stupid. Why would you? No, I'm going to listen to my dad. You know why? Because my dad gets like 5 weeks of vacation a year and he can get sick and he's not going to lose his job. He has flexibility. He can put his family first. And he is just able to do these things that people in worldwide could never do. And it's really sad because you see these base level people who are still involved and they're getting nowhere. And that is why I'm so glad that we have people like you, Sarah, who are willing to share to hopefully reach the people who are still in to help them get out because there really is so much more that can come from leaving. So, obviously, you guys, we're going to hear from Sarah again. This is an ongoing saga because, as we all know, it is not just as simple as I'm done. If you've ever been in a situation like this, sometimes it takes time. Different situations are different. So, there's obviously reasons why Sarah might still be involved, hence why she is anonymous still. We don't judge here, okay? But before we go, what are some words of wisdom that you have for our viewers, our listeners, after the conversation that we've had today?
Honestly, I would love to just address like you are worthy, whether people tell you you are or not, you find that worth within you. The one thing that I've noticed that Worldwide does is they prey on people's insecurities and low self esteem. So, in order for you to recognize if someone's really taking advantage of you, is if they're prying on your insecurities. And I encourage everybody listening, like, you are worthy, you are worth it, whether someone tells you you are or not, because you know who you are and you know what you want for yourself and you are strong. You are very capable. You don't have to have someone tell you because the people in worldwide, they love to love bomb you and love bomb yourself. Say, you know what? I'm beautiful today. You know what? I'm capable today. I can do whatever I want to today because you're not in a cult. You are free to do whatever you want. And don't let anyone take that away from you because they're probably wanting something from you, which is worldwide. They want your freedom, but don't let them take that because you have that life and live your life the way you want to live it.
I love it so much. Thank you so much, Sarah. I really appreciate it. If you guys would like to be like Sarah and you want to come on and share your story, it doesn't even have to be MLM related. If you guys have a traumatic story that you really want to share, please go ahead and DM me on Instagram at xsnt.podcast. You guys can also email me at dani@xsntpodcast.com. Find me on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and everywhere podcasts are heard. You guys, thank you again, Sarah. You guys have a great rest of your day. We'll catch you in the next episode.